Hi, I'm going to do a demo of the new data prep capabilities in OAC 5 as demoed in the Oracle Open World session for data prep. I'm going to demo is how to solve the problem of having too much data on the left-hand side and how to get the user to quickly begin analyzing the data and preparing the data for analysis in order to get some of the questions that need to be answered. So we're going to take a couple of files and join them. So we're going to take some customer data, some web transaction data, and also we're going to combine that and leverage a knowledge graph that's shipped as part of OAC 5 that is leveraged during the semantic profiling to do semantic classifications. And that semantic classification information, along with other details about the data, are used to then propose to the user through very friendly recommendations a way to prepare the data with single clicks or through some menu-driven actions and get it ready to analyze as soon as possible so that we can get some of those answers that we're looking for. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with creating a project. So we're seeing the home page of the Oracle Analytics Cloud. We're going to create a project and we're going to upload our first data set. First data set is our customer information file, and it has information about our customers. The first thing that we see is a preview of the data, so we can make sure that this is the file that we wanted to work with. We see that we have header information and some row information, and if it's the file that we wanted to work with, we just click on the Add button. When we click on Add, the data is then ingested into the Oracle Analytics Cloud. It also goes through a deep semantic profiling of the data to do the semantic classification. Notice the data prep surface is made up of a preparation script panel, a properties panel, and then on the right hand side we have a recommendations panel that lists all the recommendations that we have against this data set. So we start either by selecting a column from the drop down of the recommendations, or we can start just reviewing the column information, and when we click on a particular column, the recommendations are filtered to be specific to that particular column. So what we have here is we have first name. If you looked at the recommendations, we have a recommendation since the system has recognized that this is first name and has also found that there is also a last name column in the data. One of the recommendations is to join those two into a full name. That would be one thing we could do with the data. The other is the knowledge graph contains some information from the Census Bureau related to genders, and we can infer gender based on the first names that we have in our data set. So gender may be something important to answer one of those questions that we had related to our customer, so we're going to accept gender. And now we have, with a single click, we have a new column that's been created for us containing the gender information. If we wanted to match the case for this particular column, we can just do a manual case update, and we now have a nicely same case new column that contains the inferred gender for my first names. Next, we can click on city, and we can show the ability for the system not only to recognize semantically that this column contains city, but also it's able to provide a whole set of recommendations, enrichment recommendations that the knowledge graph contains, a set of open reference knowledge that can be used to enrich the data. In this case, for city, something that may be of interest for our downstream analysis would be to add population. We can also add long lat and other things, but for this demo, we're just going to add population. The system recognizes state, recognizes zip, and that's the only piece of information you have for a particular data set. Then we could bring in the city and so forth for that particular zip code. It recognizes country, and we have a large number of enrichments related to country. It does recognize a large number of patterns. Notice that the system has recognized that this is email, and it has what we call a semantic split recommendation, and it knows what it's going to be splitting out as we can extract email. So if I click on this recommendation, it knows that this is an email column, and it is able to extract email domain from that column very cleanly with a single click. It recognizes phone numbers. It recognizes about 30 different dates, and it is able to not only format those dates, it's also able to extract parts of that date. So my header says that this is a birthday, so we probably want to not continue this column to the analytics side. So we're going to want to delete this column, but before I do that, we can extract something that's not a privacy concern. And let's extract a month. With a single click, I can extract a month from the birth date. I can then go ahead and delete the offending column that may divulge some privacy information. And I can also then rename this column to tell the downstream analysis person that this is the birth month of our customer. And we now have changed the name of the column. We now have removed the PII column, and we can continue with our work. The system recognizes a set of patterns that are also associated with PII, such as credit card numbers and social security numbers. And when it discovers those, the recommendations are related to remediating this potential release of private information to someone that may not be allowed to see this. So the recommendations that you see for credit card number are, to obfuscate the number, to sort of replace the numbers of this credit card with non-identifiable information, or we can just delete the column. So we'll just go ahead and delete the column with a single click, and we now have remediated that PII column as well. Recognizes social security numbers. Again, it gives me the set of remediation recommendations. It also gives me some split outs because it detected the pattern of social security as well. But for social security, we're just going to then keep it, but obfuscate the first 5 digits and making it sort of semi-obfuscated in order to maybe keep part of the information for downstream. So let's say that we're done preparing our data for what we need to for this particular file. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply the script, and once it's applied to the entire data set, notice that every action that we either accepted or did a manual action based on the menu has been recorded in the preparation script. When we clicked apply, that's applied to the full data set, and then it's immediately available for us to then visualize. Notice that my gender is available for visualization, so I can select a gender and maybe get a quick count on my customers by gender. And I can see, immediately from a column that even never existed on that data set, how I can start to do gender. So let's go back to prepare and do one more thing. So we're going to add our second file, and our second file is a file that contains some of my web transactions for a particular month. So we're going to bring that in, and this is what I'm going to do some analysis on. Web transactions come in, it has some information about order ID, some order date columns, what they purchase, what the price of the purchase is, so and very little customer information. So we're going to add this new file, the second file, and we're going to see a couple of things. If we look at the data diagram, so the system's going to do a search for common columns in the data, and it has found that this data set can be joined by using cust ID. So there is cust ID on both files, so it's automatically made a join key for me. If we go back to transactions, notice we also have recommendations for this second data set. And what we're going to do here, since you've already seen the gist of being able to accept recommendations or transform the data with the menu, we're just going to make one change. Notice that order date is what we call an epic date. It's just a string of numbers. It's not very user-friendly, and it's not very useful for downstream analysis. The system did recognize that this was an epic date, and it's given me a lot of recommendations around epic date. So we're going to extract something of value from that epic date. So this is the order date. So we're going to say extract the day of week from that order date so that we can maybe see a pattern on what days of the week are shopped more, etc. So we're going to do that. So we now have a new column, is my weekdays based on order date, and that's all we want to do with that. And we're going to click apply. And so we now have two separate files that may have come from two different sources. We have joined those two files. We have prepared both files through a very easy to understand recommendation process. And now we're ready to go into visualize. Remember that the files are automatically joined based on cust ID. I can ask other questions such as I can take my weekday and grab sales price and create another visualization to say how much is purchased on a particular day of the week. We can change the color. And again, the weekday was not something that was a column available in the set. We actually enriched the data set with weekday. We can also do cross columns, and we now have a much richer analysis potential.